Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Red Leaf Card, your home for Canadian soccer news and topics. I'm your host, Jacob, with my guest, Jason. On this episode, we'll be recapping on the quarterfinals of the Canadian Championship, and we'll be also discussing that the Women's Soccer League coming into Canada. But first, here's your fixtures rundown. Forge FC has won to Valor FC 3-2 of the score. Calgary versus Halifax Wanderer becomes to a draw 2 apiece. Vancouver FC versus Atletico Ottawa. Vancouver lost to 0-5. Club de Foot Montreal beats Toronto FC 2-0. Whitecaps lost to Portland Timbers 3-1. And to the Canadian Championship, we will recapping with our guest, Jason.
And I'm going to apologize well in advance. My voice is definitely not holding up this week, but I'll do my best. I will do my best. I will give it the good Rovers try, if you will, because they definitely put a good effort in this week.
Yep, all the way we seen versus Valor FC, it was a great match and was one of the biggest upsets for Canadian Premier League. And we've seen how TSS Rovers could actually be a good competitive team.
Oh, I mean, the challenge presented to them by Pacific in comparison to Valor, you're talking a much better team. Pacific is definitely one of the better teams this year. Good goaltending, good defense. Are they going to blow you out? No, but I think Rovers really held their own in this one. Making sure that most Pacific's scoring chances, or at least their shots on goal, were from distance. They're not giving them the easy chances. Rovers didn't roll over. They were really, really good. They held their own. They looked, for a semi-pro team to go in against a Canadian Premier League team and not look at a place, not look like it's a mismatch. Rovers proved themselves once again despite the loss.
Yeah, I think that TSS Rovers basically knew what they were doing, and I think also have to give credit to the coach for it. They were really finding good ways to try to take down Pacific FC, but lost. But they know really well how to play defense.
Oh, absolutely. The fact that you're holding Pacific to even that first goal, right? Like that's, penalty kick or not, right? It's they did very well. Like honestly, Rovers, with the performance that they put in, not just in this match, but in their defeat of Valor in the opening round, they could have been a Canadian Premier League team very easily.
Yeah, even the history of TSS Rovers, they played in the USL League.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, you have a very good team. It's a shame that they don't get to move on, but credit where credit is due. Pacific is just a beast of a team this year.
Yeah, Pacific FC winning to TSS Rovers 2-0.
Mm-hmm.
And gotta hand it to you. This is a team could actually do well.
If Pacific continues to play the way that they're playing, not only do they have a chance to win the Canadian Championship, they really are putting themselves in a position to be in the talks for contenders for winning it all in the Canadian Premier League this year. Their goaltending is the cream of the crop. Their defensive play and their offensive zone control are top notch. I get Forge is still the team to beat, but I think Pacific actually has a really good shot at making a lot of noise this year.
Yeah, but when you see Pacific FC, who they're going to be versing? It's the Whitecaps. Whitecaps versing York United. Whitecaps beat York United 4-1.
Okay, this it should have been much more. I'm not gonna lie. York United have a lot of problems going on, and we're not even gonna get into like the ownership issue, and like obviously there's a lot of top down problems with this organization at this point. Take the own goal out of this. That's just an unfortunate bounce off the crossbar, like straight up pinball. I don't hold that against Elijah Adekugbe. It could have happened to anybody. But on the second one with Giansopoulos, way out of his net. Like to the point of like he may as well have been a midfielder at that point. Like you have to control your own end much better. This game should have been 7 or 8-0. Really, the way it was played. Can York turn this around?
That is one of the biggest. That's a good question. And when you think about Giansopoulos, that was way out of his goalie area. I don't even know where do you start. Where do you actually start? That was not a good idea to do.
No,
that was not.
I mean, I get there's going to be nerves when you go up against a team like the Whitecaps. You're going up against an MLS team. You're going up against, it's a David and Goliath situation. But, I mean, you got Di Rosario up front by himself. And I get that there's injuries going on. But if you're running a 1-3-2-4 formation and your top goal scorer from last year hasn't found the back of the net this year at all, 10 shots, 4 on target, nothing to show for it. D-Rose trying. But if you have injuries, if you're short on the front, you need to change your formation in order to be able to balance that out. York's not doing that.
And it's always you think about Zario. He can't. Usually, you can't have Di Rosario doing all of it because all of it himself. You have Mobabuli. He's not gonna even playing to injuries, and like Mobabuli is like one of the best players for the team.
Yeah, I mean, I get it's early season. I get we're not that far into the year, but York United as a team have 2 goals. 2. As a team, you're not going to win anything if that's your output level.
Yeah, and still not even, and still they have not won.
Yeah, no. D-Rose got 12 goals on the record last year. Right? He can do it, but he can't do it by himself.
And now in this season, it's all the pressure.
Oh yeah, if you're behind the 8 ball this early on and the motor's not running, you're not going anywhere.
And it's not just the pressure for Di Rosario. You bring in Brian Wright from Atletico Ottawa.
Mm-hmm.
That's also pressure on Brian Wright, even to everyone in the roster. A lot. It's a lot of pressure. And when I see you and going back to Giansopoulos, of it getting out of his goalie area, he could have been red carded.
Oh, he could have been. The worst that happened is it's you're down 2-0 at that point, and it was a horrible play. Like you're batting the ball away, and Vancouver's right there to pick it up. Like thank you kindly for the assist. Like you are not helping your cause at all. And yeah, I get York was able to put one on the board, but you saw how fired up the Vancouver goalie was. You saw the reaction too in the turnaround. Like, okay, we messed up. We took our foot off the pedal. Let's go slam it home. Score right away.
Yeah, and give credit to Austin Ritchie getting a goal.
That's how you respond.
Yeah.
Things go wrong, you mess up, you bounce back, right? Adekugbe has an unfortunate bounce. You turn it around and you go put it in the other net.
And that response, even getting Vancouver Whitecaps actually mad for something.
Exactly. That's the thing I'm not seeing. I didn't see it all from York. Where's the anger at this? Where is the frustration? Where is the drive? You're up 3-0, you let a goal in, and you get that mad. That tells you who's got the drive and the hunger. I don't see that right now to York. I don't.
But at least you angered Whitecaps at the point. We wanted that clean. Whitecaps wanted that clean sheet, but they let in one goal.
Yeah. But again.
But I still think that fans are reacting. They're angry at York.
Mm-hmm. And the problem with CPL teams, right, is if the fans are angry, they're just going to stop going. They're going to stop going, and then you're really in trouble.
Yeah. And you look at Forge FC, Atletico Ottawa, basically became a draw at 1 apiece. And Forge FC beats Atletico Ottawa at penalty kicks.
As much as I appreciated the Pacific Rovers match, this was the match of the week. This was, a back and forth affair. You had 2 goalies, very athletic saves. Both Melvin and Henry this could have been a much higher scoring game had it not been for Melvin and Henry. And even when you go to kicks, right, and both of them are making stops. Well, and the goalpost too. You go to a 6th round, right, and Verhoeven just skyrockets one, like, to another atmosphere, and you can see, right away, and that's the thing. If the goalies are playing that well, and you put one about 4 floors up, that's the end right there.
Yeah, I think that both goalies have to get credit for this, even all the players, because this was a great match, even a good rivalry in Ontario.
Well, I mean, there's the other thing too. Forge, of course, is the team to beat, right? And you've got that history from last year against Ottawa. Ottawa has done very well at turning things around. Here's Melvin coming in from, covering for injury and making the most of those moments. A 5-0 clean sheet in CPL play. And then you got a 1-1 draw against your defending champions. That's solid.
And this is his second game in this season.
Yeah.
And you might say, "Oh, this might be a good time to have a great match," but he did really well in the Canadian Championship.
Yeah.
Every player becomes rusty, then they come actually great at it.
Yeah. There's something to be said about someone new coming into the fold and putting their all into it and reigniting a spark that Ottawa clearly needed. They've been playing well enough to this point, but now, I mean, that's a full team effort with a tough loss.
Now Forge FC is going to go to the semifinals, and as noticed, they're going to be versing Montreal.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about this match. Most of it not on the pitch.
The Toronto FC at BMO Field versing Clothing from Montreal.
All right, let's talk about the game on the field first before we get to the stupidity. Right,
2-1.
Exactly. And the problem is, though, it could have been worse. Right, like, I'm not trying to slag anyone, but the defense looked like pylons. They did. Like, the feet stopped moving. Montreal really control the offensive zone. Toronto, there was no hustle in the back end. There's no hustle. There's no protection of the net, right? If you're going to stand around and wait to see if the ball comes your way, get out of the way, right? Like, do something.
Even put pressure on the offense.
Yeah, I mean, offensively, TFC had their moments, right? There was the Sapong chance. I'm surprised that didn't lead to a penalty shot, but Montreal goes on the offensive, and they pretty much had their way with the defenders, and that's not good. And then the following weekend, right? The next matchup, you didn't do any better.
Yeah, it's always what happened to Toronto FC going on to this losing streak. You can't even win a match anymore. That's the biggest question.
Yeah. I mean, the last time we talked on this show, we were talking about how Montreal really were the bottom of the barrel for MLS. They hadn't done well. They weren't finding the back of the net. They weren't getting blown out, but they weren't doing well. And TFC was middle of the table. And now it seems like the fortunes were reversed. Montreal changed the game plan, shifted some pieces, adapted, and they've overcome those early struggles. Will it be enough to make the playoffs? I don't know. I highly doubt it. But TFC are faltering. And I don't know if they can right the ship.
And also from this match about Toronto FC against CF Montreal, they're not going to have the advantage round. They're not going to be in the quarterfinals. They're going to start from the first round.
Yeah.
And that's the pressure mode.
Yeah, you have to put yourself in a position to win. Right? And it starts from your own end. Right? Defense wins championships. And what we saw in this match, in this quarterfinal match, even if TFC had found a way to win, they would have faltered against Forge playing like that.
And now during what actually happened off the field,
I did say the stupidity, right?
I know that the whole thing now becomes an investigation with all the fights.
Yeah,
and
you fool around, you find out. Now, this isn't unique. There are channels and channels of videos of people fighting in the stands. Too much beer, too much testosterone. It's stupid. And it's dangerous, right? You're fighting on cement stairs that high off the ground. One slip on a bag of stale popcorn, you crack your head. You could be, liable. You could be an accessory to murder. Accidental, but the fact of the matter is, it's a game. What are you fighting for? What are you fighting about? It's a game.
And like every single time, when people always want to respond about it, you want to be the greatest team.
Oh, you know what? Be excited when your team wins. Be upset when your team loses. But to start taking your belt off and whipping people and throwing megaphones on the field, what?
It's both sides about it, and I look at the investigation that, like, throwing the megaphone at a player, that is way offline.
Oh, can you imagine if he hit him? That's assault.
Yeah, you could get sued for that. You could, and now you figure out you're part of the You're one of the people who are in an investigation.
I have never, ever understood the mentality of throwing anything back on the field. The only time I see it as being even remotely okay is, you catch the away team home run ball, you toss that back on the field, but you make sure you toss it in a part of the field where no one's nearby. That's whatever, right? That's harmless.
And I look at this whole thing. They make statements about this. So, Kings of the North, which is a group, they make a statement about this. We don't condone this garbage, and I react to this. I'm like, really? It's been everywhere. We've seen a lot of fights.
Yeah, I mean, we're not dealing with European football factories here. We're not, we're not gonna see, wave upon wave of like bloody stands here. But the problem is, the very next match, you go to Stat Saputo. Guess what? Your supporter, you're coming in to support TFC. You ain't going to that game. They close that section down. When the fan behavior becomes disruptive to the game, the fans don't get to go to the game. I flash back to, and I think I can't remember, it was like 2015, 2016 or something like that, but there were riots and protests going on in Baltimore at the time. And it was so bad that the Orioles had to play a couple of home games with no one in the stands. No one. Not a single person was allowed at the game. This is before the pandemic made it necessary. You had no one. Commentators didn't know what to, they started cracking jokes about it, making golf calls. That's all you can do. But that's the thing. Because of the civil unrest at the time in the city, and I was in that city around that time, went down for a rock festival, hop on the train to go back to the train station. You look at the window, and it's like, that hole looks very bullet-shaped in the window. Like, if this behavior were to continue, fans run the risk of being locked out of the stadiums to see their own team. No one wants that. That's not good for the fans. That's not good for the team or the game. Like, I don't care how mad you are about your team. Don't fight in the stands.
I completely agree. And even Toronto FC's even responded about this statement, even made a statement, and still fans are still attacking the team. Even, for example, even the Canadian Soccer Association investigate, and they still say, oh, why don't you investigate Bill Manning? Why don't you investigate Bradley? I'm like, why are they supposed to be investigated? That's the question. It should be the fans.
Yeah.
Their behavior.
Bradley's not up in the stands throwing haymakers. He's not taking his belt off and whipping people. Like, I do not see the point of getting so mad at your team that you put yourself in a position that you can get permanently banned from all MLSE facilities for TFC, the Leafs, the Raptors, concerts, events. Just imagine, 15 seconds, a minute of what? For a lifetime ban. Weigh the odds. Weigh the return on this.
Yeah, and I do have to always say this. They have to stop shifting the blame, so you can that, oh, it was not me. It was not me at all. It was someone else.
Doesn't matter. Now, I do know that there are reports that there wasn't adequate security in that section, but still, it doesn't matter if the security guards are there or not, right? People fight in the stands even when there are security guards there. And at what point does the need for more security, necessitate the need for the team to do more and cut people out of the stadium, right? Extra security costs money. That money is going to be tossed down to the fans, whether it be in ticket costs, beer costs, hot dog costs. Like, it's going to be a trickle-down effect. It's not coming out of Bradley's pocket.
Oh.
It's not coming out of the team's pocket. They're going to toss that cost back to the fans. The fans that are there primarily to cheer their team on. A couple of hooligans are going to make it worse.
And, for fans that getting permit bans.
Yep.
And they're going to still be more.
And I think it's important that MLS came down that hard on them. Someone does that, you need to make the punishment worthy of the incident. So it hopefully doesn't happen again. And I really hope, from what I've seen, I don't think there are severe injuries. I don't think anyone, ended up in the hospital for longer than any time to check out some cuts or whatever. Luckily no one got seriously hurt. But all it's going to take is one.
Yeah.
And they have every right at that point to go the nuclear option and have empty stands.
And even you heard that Club de Foot Montreal even reacted to this.
Yeah.
I'm correct that they banned Toronto FC fans coming into their stadium.
Yeah, that's the worst that happened, right? It could have been way worse.
Yeah.
Right? It is what it is now, and hopefully this is just a thing of the past, a one-time incident that hopefully never happens again. I'm sure it will. I hope it doesn't happen at TFC, but just consider the options. One thing is going to go really bad, really wrong, and the consequences and the subsequent actions of the teams and the leagues after that could be worse than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah. So now we're seeing the semifinals already finished, or already going to be starting soon. Club de Foot Montreal versus Forge FC.
You know me. I was skeptical of Montreal going into this. I'm not so skeptical anymore. They've turned it around and they have done well. I don't know if they have what it takes to beat Forge, but to the same token as well, Forge hasn't really shown a level of finish in their game at this point. That's a coin toss. And on the flip side, you got Pacific versus Whitecaps.
Even on Vancouver Islands.
Yeah. You know what? I know I'm the idiot that said Vaughan might actually make it to the semifinals, but now I'm going to sit here and say I think Pacific has what it takes to beat the Whitecaps.
Yeah.
I think they have the better goalie. I think they have the better defense. I think if it's not going to be a high-scoring game by any stretch of the imagination. It may end up being a 1-0 or go to kicks. If it goes to kicks, I think Pacific holds the advantage.
And I've kind of predicted that Vancouver Whitecaps would have been into the semifinals, and I was kind of not sure about TFC versus Montreal. I was it's always this thing. Would Toronto FC win against Montreal? And you've seen it. It's repeatedly they're not really strength, and I would say Montreal could have the edge. And my prediction, I do think sometimes I might be wrong. I might be wrong about it.
Oh, dude, I'm the guy that said that Vaughan was going to make it to the semifinals, so, what do I know?
But look, if Pacific FC actually beats Vancouver Whitecaps, I would say that this actually could be the best match. I think that both matches are to watch. But you're having the reason why I'm picking Pacific FC versus Vancouver Whitecaps. You're versing the reigning champs. That's the reason to watch it. you want to see the biggest upset
Mm-hmm.
to see who is the next reigning champ. But when you think about Forge FC, it's going to be versus Montreal. Could be another great match. Because the matter of fact is they went to PKs from the previous Canadian Championship.
Oh, I think Forge is a much better team than TFC. So I mean, that's going to be a much more even match. I think. Forge is going to have to put the pedal down and do what they did in the opening round and just take any question of any possibility of loss out of the factor. If it's all square at halftime, you give Montreal a chance. Forge needs to, put it on the board early.
I think if that was Forge FC versus Toronto FC,
oh, that'd be Forge all the way.
That would have been Forge FC. And even for the 2020 Canadian Championship, which was basically Forge FC and Toronto FC, which had to be delayed,
Mm-hmm.
it went all the way to PKs.
No, Forge is a solid team, absolutely.
I can't believe how improved Forge FC is and how competitive it is. That it blows my mind how competitive they are in the Canadian Championship. That they could actually go to the finals again.
I'm telling you right now, if Forge were in Major League Soccer, they would do very well, I think.
Yeah. When we could talk about women's soccer coming to Canada in 2025. Now we're seeing 3 teams being announced. Vancouver Whitecaps and Calgary Foothills were the first 2 to be announced. Now we're seeing Toronto actually getting a team called the AFC Toronto City.
Yeah, this league, from all initial indicators, is doing everything right off the bat. First, you've got people like Diana Matheson and Christine Sinclair on board right away. 2 very, very, very recognizable names in women's soccer in this country. You also have very good sponsorship behind it. You got CIBC, you got Air Canada, you got Canadian Tire, and you got DoorDash. But 3 of those 4 are iconic Canadian businesses and brand names, especially with Air Canada in there. That's going to handle your travel back and forth. Canadian Tire, this is the one that really stands out to me. I mean, yeah, CIBC, with some money there, but with Canadian Tire, the key for this league is to bring more girls to the interest of being in the Canadian Women's Soccer League. This is where the grassroots comes from.
Even for example, to promote the sport.
Yeah, I mean, you think, right? Parents, you got a kid. They want to join sports. They want to go play soccer. You go to Canadian Tire. You buy a soccer ball. They want to go play hockey. You go to Canadian Tire and you get the gear. That's always been the way it goes. Canadian Tire is very good at building the grassroots level from the kids up. This is huge. This is key, and to have those kind of sponsors on, and you got Dome Productions in as one of your sponsors as well. That means the production level of the games for broadcast is going to be very, very good, because Dome Productions has a long history of doing sports television production in this country. And as far as the markets go, right? Toronto, Calgary, Vancouver, those are no-brainers. It's great that the Whitecaps name is out there. Just like with the FA Women's Soccer League, right? Man City, Man U, Arsenal, you already know the cities and the teams and the tie-in together, and the fact that you have, if you go to like I think it's like the Man U and the Man City teams, you can go check the women's rosters. Well, it creates a partnership, right? So to have the Whitecaps tied to this league already and that name involved creates instant recognition.
I just really question about Toronto FC. Why weren't they involved?
I really don't know.
Yeah, that's even
That's a missed opportunity.
This is going to be even worse if Toronto FC doesn't even react. If Montreal, like for example, Club de Foot Montreal, what if they actually are going to be the next team? Oh, we're going to come in, and Toronto FC says, "I didn't expect that."
I mean, here's the thing, right? If Montreal gets a women's team and they call it the Impact, and they partner with CF Montreal, that's a smart move. I don't know why TFC is involved. I don't know if they are or not. But to have the Whitecaps name involved creates instant brand recognition, and that's going to be the early clue. Okay, you're going to have to get eyes on. You're going to have to create a visible product. And a lot of it too, I mean, obviously One Soccer is going to be very involved with it. Okay. You're going to have to create a video product that's going to be seen by everyone. I think there's a really good opportunity here. And hear me out on this one. Yes, One Soccer has the deal with Telus, and that's great for out west. And obviously, if you're going to create an 8-team league to start this in 2025, you're going to want to put it in, probably 4 in the west, 4 in the east. Montreal, definitely. Hamilton's a possibility, but you don't want to put too much into Ontario. I think you got to touch the Maritimes. But you're going to need a national video platform, and One Soccer is definitely going to be in the mix, you have to think. But I think there's other avenues that's going to help bring some ad dollars to it.
Could be TSN.
It could be TSN.
Or maybe Bell or...
Yeah, it could be TSN, it could be Sportsnet. Chorus. At one point in time, Chorus had a license with the CRTC to be able to create a sports network that they never really did anything with. Okay, they spent their time in acquiring things like CanWest and Global and all this kind of stuff. Now they have a partnership with Paramount, and that's called Pluto TV. Pluto TV is what's called a FAST network, free ad-supported television. So basically TV just on the internet. So you go to Pluto TV, and they have some on-demand stuff, but they also have channels that are dedicated to certain genres and brands. Their sports offerings right now, there are only four sports channels on their streaming service. You've got beIN Sports Extra, you've got MAV TV, you have Impact Wrestling, and you have the World Poker Tour. So really you have 2 sports networks, right? And one sports entertainment and one a bunch of guys sitting around wearing sunglasses, holding cards, and making more money than I'll ever see. But there's an opportunity here. And whether it's a women's sports streaming channel on a fast service like Pluto TV, or if it's just a Canadian soccer one. But the thing is, if you go with a women's sports streaming channel, right, and it's Paramount, which is also obviously partnerships with CBS, you also have the ability to put things on there like the NWSL, right? The time is now for a women's sports network.
I think I really agree. I think the popularity in women's soccer in Canada, it is actually there.
Yeah, and it's not just soccer. You think about the athletes in this country that are doing well in their respective sports, right? Obviously, Canadian women's hockey is always up there, right? And the fact that there's still the Dream Gap Tour, the secret Dream Gap Tour that goes around, that could use some more eyes on it. Obviously, the Canadian Women's Soccer League coming up, but even some of the best athletes in their sport are from this country. Look at Leila Fernandez. You look at Brooke Henderson. You've got phenomenal athletes coming out of this country representing the good female athletes that we produce. Give them the air. Give them the space to be seen. And I think a network like Pluto TV, if they were to jump on that, partner with CBS, pull some of the content, because you've got Christine Sinclair still doing stuff with the NWSL, right? You have Canadians down in the States playing in these leagues because they're the only leagues that they can play in. They're the only leagues that's available for them. Give them the network, even if it's not live, even if it's just full game replays and say a nightly show. It wouldn't take much to put together a network like that from a content perspective on a fast service. We had one. We had WTSN back in, I think it was like 2001, 2002. We had a women's television network, and maybe it wasn't the right time for it. Maybe the leagues didn't have the broadcast deals to support it. Now we have it. Now we have the available networks and the ability to show all of these leagues. Now's the time.
Yeah. I think it is the right time. I think it's one of the greatest times to actually get it. Even if it's going to be close to the World Cup. Think about it. You're going to have a full house of Canadian soccer coming.
Yep.
You had the Canadian Premier League. You're now going to have the Women's Soccer League in Canada. And then later you're going to come with the World Cup.
This league is the step in the right direction to correcting the errors that Soccer Canada had in lack of funding towards the women's national team. This is how you make it right. Yeah.
Now it is actually, and I hope it does well in the financial. Even for example, the Canadian Premier League does well in the future in financially.
Yeah, Project 8 has made some smart moves in getting this off the ground.
Yeah, and now finally being the member of the Canadian Soccer Association, it was about time.
Yeah,
and that's full time in this episode of the Red League Card. Thanks for listening. Until next time, I'm your host Jacob, subbing out.